Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, both new and old. And if you're not seeing me right now, and of course this is the audio format, I am just rollicking in that awesome theme song music. So I am just like pretending like I'm playing with my invisible guitar and all that stuff, but unfortunately you can't see my awesome expressions of what I'm doing right now. Anyway, joining me tonight for our Planet of the Apes review is also kind of a dirty ape himself, is Benjamin Curley. I was going to use the other word, but it would be too... It was going to be too offensive for some of our younger listeners if I did get that word. But anyway, Benjamin Curley is joining me tonight. Hey, Ben, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine. I am just really tired right now because of, well, folks, you have no idea what's been going on the past hour just to get this episode ready for you. We have been... The age of Skype may be over for us on Story to Screen. I kid you not. That thing has been just a piece of junk lately. We are actually recording this through the miracles of Google Hangout. So it's a very delightful little program if you want to explore some other alternatives instead of using Skype. But anyway, but yeah. So Ben, what's been up with you? Been taking care of the new baby? Oh
yeah.
Just how's
keeping very busy between work and family. Yeah, I am incredibly busy, but it's been great.
Anyway, folks, let's go ahead and jump into our review for the 1968 classic Planet of the Apes.
Can't help thinking that somewhere in the universe there has to be something better than man. Has to be.
The words are Charlton Heston's.
Get out a last signal to Earth that we've landed!
The world he finds out in the galaxy will challenge every idea you've ever had of civilization. A planet where man is the lowest order of living things, and the superior beings are apes. They build the cities, make the laws, the gods, and control the guns that hunt a race of lowly, terrified humans who run wild in the jungles, are caged in the prisons, and stuffed in the museums. 20th Century Fox transforms the motion picture screen into Planet of the Apes. Pierre Boulle's finest novel since Bridge on the River Kwai.
It's a world gone insane, an upside-down civilization that could not be real. Yes, a world of madness and terror.
Man has no understanding. He can be taught a few simple tricks, nothing more.
You did it. You cut up his brain, you bloody baboon!
It's a madhouse! It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
But it did not end here. It ended in an episode so unpredictable, so shocking, it made the horror which preceded it seem calm and gentle as a summer's night. A great many people worked long and hard to answer the question of what a civilization would be like where the evolutionary process had been reversed and apes were the superior species. Hundreds of technicians and the largest number of makeup artists ever assembled assisted the producers, the writers, the director, and the cast. Dr. Cornelius, Roddy McDowell. Dr. Zira, as played by Kim Hunter. Dr. Zayas is portrayed by Maurice Evans. And Nova by Linda Harrison.
Now the tribunal has placed you in my custody for final disposition. You realize what that means?
No.
Emasculation to begin with. then experimental surgery on the speech centers, on the brain. Eventually a kind of living death.
Planet of the Apes, beyond your wildest dreams.
What you just heard was the original trailer for Planet of the Apes from 1968. It stars Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall. Ben, I have a very fond memory of this movie with you because when was it? It was probably like about 7 years ago. And you might not remember this. We saw it together 7 years ago when you, me, and Tim, for any of you who don't know Tim Dempsey, he's an old friend of ours. We would go to your house. No. We would go to your office. We would actually go to your work,
where we had a projector and a giant screen set up. Yeah, yes. I remember that.
And we would get Arby's. You remember that?
Yes.
Yes.
Good times.
And then we would actually we watched movies, and that was a really cool setup. And we had these like little, it wasn't like movie chairs, but it was car seat chairs, which was so cool. Yes. But yeah, we watched Planet of the Apes in that office warehouse.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my first exposure to watching that film. And and I had heard of Planet of the Apes. It was one of those movies that I was consciously aware of, and I think it was also due to the fact that that image, I hate to kind of spoiler alert for those who don't know the ending, but it's one of the most highly marketed images of the film. The Statue of Liberty, that moment of him in the beach and the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the most spoiled moments out there. Like you can't get away from that image.
No, it's so iconic.
Yeah, I know. And were you? I'm assuming you had seen that image of the Statue of Liberty before you had seen the film. Am I correct in that?
No, actually, because I saw the film so long ago, when I was a lot younger, that I was not aware of the ending. I actually saw it on VHS. My granddad had the whole set on VHS, and that's where I originally saw it.
Oh, cool. Let me ask you this. Where does Planet of the Apes lie for you in the pantheon of the great sci-fi films? I mean, you've got the Star Wars franchise, and maybe I'm more referring to the Planet of the Apes series as a whole. The How many films are there? 6 or 8 films, I believe. So you got you got Star Wars, you got Back to the Future, you got Star Trek. Where does Planet of the Apes franchise kind of lie for you in that pantheon of science fiction?
Well, when it comes to classic science fiction, Planet of the Apes is definitely high on that list. As far as story goes, so it's not that complex, but it is a very unique story. You don't forget it very easily.
This was one of those movies that, again, I knew about it and I finally saw it. It took me a while to really appreciate what it was. And I think I'm still trying to appreciate it a little bit more. And maybe because I love the recent movies. The recent movies I think are so great. I think they're much more character studies, where this one I think is much more, it's very highly philosophical.
Yes.
This is kind of...
It's incredibly preachy, is what it is.
Oh, yeah. Especially, it's incredibly preachy in the sense that it's very driven by its beliefs.
Yes.
Somewhat. And that's where I kind of take issues with that idea, because I remember for the longest time, people were like, oh, this is a very pro-evolution film. It's very pro-evolution. Watching it again, at least for me, and I could be completely wrong about this, but it seems to be, it seems to present evolution as a conflicting point of view. Well, I mean, in the film, it's kind of when you get to the apes and when they take Chuck Heston to the village, and when you kind of are introduced to the council, it seems to be a conflict of different points of views. There seems to be kind of like a Christianity kind of divine aspect to their beliefs, and also there seems to be kind of an evolutionary aspect to it as well, with like man, the apes evolved from man. It's like the reversal effect of the reversal belief of evolution. Did you catch on to that by any chance?
Oh yeah, no, it's eerily, and I would say deliberately similar to Darwin's belief in his fight against the church and its religious views back in the day, and it's intentionally flipped. Both situations, it's intentionally flipped so that in every sense, the religious view is painted as evil and dogmatic and just prone to foolishness.
Do you, in terms of the foolishness aspect, where does that kind of come in? What was there that made you say that? Because I felt like it kind of...
it's just the way that it paints a very clear picture that religion may have a place, but its place is absolutely never to be in the realm of science. That if religion is ever mixed with science, the results will always be a covering up of the truth.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to, before we get, I really want to kind of leave that towards the end of our conversation, because that's something I put down as a note, the idea of science versus fact versus beliefs. Because I think that's the major point of this film, is the conflict of two or three.
Yes.
I would say it was probably three ideals. Because... here's one thing, too, that the movie was written by the legendary Rod Serling, who I think for many of us science fiction fans know him as the creator of The Twilight Zone, which that series was very heavy in kind of the depravity of man, is there or is there more than just what meets the eye? Is there a supernatural element? I mean, I know the series was very science fiction heavy, and there's a lot of these kind of hypothetical scenarios, and I think this movie very much feels like a feature like Twilight Zone. Oh
yeah, no, I could see that.
Like, does it not? I mean, it has that feel to it.
It does.
I mean, like the music. I mean, and actually, I think that not that there was a Planet of the Apes type of episode on the Twilight Zone, but there was an episode, I believe, where they did go to a planet, and the astronauts discover, I think it was like another civilization of mankind, and they wind up like killing each other. Spoiler alert! I don't know what that episode is, but I do know. I did hear of it, but I have not seen it yet. I've seen a lot of Twilight Zone, but here's one thing too. The movie has very little sci-fi elements to it. Like you get to this world, and which they take a huge leap into the future, the astronauts. But you don't really get a sense. You get a primitive world. Mm-hmm. Like this world is still like in its early stages of evolving. Like it's still trying to build itself, but you don't get a sense that it's very futuristic. Like originally this movie was supposed to be a futuristic kind of, it was supposed to be like the Blade Runner of Planet of the Apes. Like there was going to be like skyscrapers and ships, but you don't really get that strong sense of this is a science fiction environment. Like you could actually believe this is happening. I know this may sound weird because it's like, wait a minute, you got these apes talking, sure, but I think there's a practicality to it that you can say like, oh, this could happen if you know what I mean? Like it has a certain reality to it.
No, it does. just because of its dealing with time travel, it does feel a lot like, oh wow, what is the name of the book now? I think it's The Time Traveler, basically, where, it does. It explores potential outcomes for mankind and Earth, and it's funny. The further you go, the more primitive the Earth seems to become ultimately.
Mm-hmm. I guess let's talk about Charlton Heston. I mean, we've talked about Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments, and I was gonna say, no, we haven't done Ben-Hur yet. We need to do Ben-Hur. We really, really need to do Ben-Hur.
Oh, yeah.
But this is one of the big ones for him. This is like another one of those films that people seem to identify as one of his... It's one of the greatest films that he's ever done, or one of the best, one of his signature films. It's very weird to see him play, because I'm so used to seeing him playing the optimistic leader. You know, like in El Cid, he plays, his character in that movie. You know, he's very much an optimistic kind of individual. Ten Commandments, I mean, he's a leader. I mean, Ben-Hur, I mean, he's definitely portrayed as a man of leadership. But in this one, he's kind of he's kind of a doubter. He seems to be an anti-war monger, or he doesn't seem to be happy with the world.
Correct. Yeah. No, he comes across as a pragmatist and very much I don't really care about other people. I don't really care that much. I'm just here for the ride, so to speak.
Yeah, like the movie that I was kind of thinking of was actually Blade Runner. I know I mentioned Blade Runner earlier, but the movie that I actually was thinking of was Blade Runner. Because you look at Rick Deckard, the Harrison Ford character in that movie, and he's just lifeless. There's no life to him at all. And one of the things I kind of said in that movie, in that review, was maybe the fact that he's hunting these replicants brings his own humanity back, or something like that. And I don't necessarily see that here with Heston, like him rediscovering his humanity.
Well, no, but I would say that he discovers humanity. That humanity ultimately confirms all of his fears about it.
Because at the very beginning, he's kind of making that really eloquent speech about, is man still making war against his brother?
Yeah.
Does starvation and war and all these other things, just killing. And then you kind of find out here at the very end, and I'm sorry for getting to that, but then he's blaming humanity. It wasn't humanity that caused the world to... I mean, at least that we see in this movie. I mean, for all we know, we'll probably get the answers in Dawn of the Apes. But in here, he's kind of back to where he started. He has no reasons to trust humanity anymore. Or the world that he knows. It's all gone.
Yes.
What were some things about the movie that doesn't work for you at all? What are some things that just do not work for you?
It felt incredibly weird to have firearms in such a primitive society, in which there was no electricity, or I guess there might have been. I don't know. The society felt weird because on one hand, I didn't see any electricity or anything like that, yet they clearly had pumps for their water system to get high pressure. They had firearms. I don't know. That maybe it was all buried underground someplace, but the ape society felt oddly primitive. Perhaps it was by choice. I don't know. And something that I've always kind of known about this film, but noticed it with more emphasis this time, was just the very slow pacing of the film. For me, it's not a bad thing, but for some people, it's way too slow for them.
Is it weird for me to say that it felt like a Star Trek? Like, it felt like an episode of Star Trek. Like, there's this very weird, like, when we get into the ape culture, And I don't know if it's just because of the look of the sets and all that stuff. It kind of felt like a TV kind of budgeted type of film. And I can understand maybe that, okay, well, we don't have enough money to really... I think that's the problem with this movie. And I don't want to say it's a problem. It's probably because it's what they had to work with. I think it's probably because the reason why it looks like this is because, you know, we don't have enough... We don't have the money to show all this grand...
Correct.
grandness of this world that we originally wanted to do, because that's what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But at times, like when you get into the inside of the interior shots and the
Oh yeah, it's rich is what it is. Yeah.
oh sure, it's rich, but at the same time, it kind of feels like, wait a minute, this feels like something you would see on the original Star Trek series. Like that was the huge thing about yeah. Like I could, like honestly, you could even make this a Star Trek movie. And have Captain Kirk kind of running, like this could be Captain Kirk. This could be the.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
And I think, believe it or not, I think they actually may have done a comic, Star Trek versus Planet of the Apes or something like that with the original.
Oh man,
it was a comic book. Hey, did you hear that they're actually doing a? What is it? Star Trek versus the alien, the xenomorphs.
Oh no! Good grief!
Oh, that actually sounds kind of cool. I wouldn't mind seeing Patrick Stewart going up against some and Data going up against some xenomorphs. That would be kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, that's the weird feeling I get from it. But I think that's part of the film's kind of fascinating look is that, yes, they do... Basically, what you see in this world is basically the remaining bits of this... of the modern world.
Possibly. Possibly. Yeah.
That's the sense I've got. You said, what did you think he represented as a character? What did you say you thought he represented as an individual?
I'm trying to recall what I said now, but he, in my mind, he very much represented the man, the man without a country, without a cause, just kind of along for the ride.
And do you remember that part where when that one astronaut is placing the American flag?
Yeah.
He laughs.
Yeah, he's very cynical about everything.
Which makes it unusual for him to play this kind of role. Is that it's kind of like he detests the American way. Like when he's building that flag, the sense of discovery. When I see that image of like people raising the American flag, it's like I think of Iwo Jima. I think of in space, and he put the flag on the moon. The sense of discovery or these new advances.
Well, the whole vibe of this film is very anti-war, anti-nationalism, anti-religion, anti-conservative Christianity is the vibe that I got from it.
But I think so too, but I didn't really get the sense of the anti-Christian as opposed to it's a point of view, and maybe it's just because I didn't catch on to those moments, because doesn't make the leader of the apes, Dr. Zaius, he seems to be like his point of view seems to show that man was ultimately the worst evil, like man itself is evil. Like it's his own worst enemy. When he says that line at the very end, like man is the reason why we're in this state right now, and he's kind of. And here's the weird thing too, like he obviously knew that Heston's, who George Taylor was, and that man was at one point in time superior to the apes, and so he's. It's like, and I put down in my notes, fact versus belief and science. I mean, I don't know what I would put him into. I would probably say he's the man of belief and science, versus fact. He's the embodiment of those two aspects.
Yeah, well, what he sees is that the moment they acknowledge that ape evolved from man suddenly means that man has some value or is the same value as apes, but it most certainly means that apes lose their special place in the universe. They lose their place as a higher being. They are suddenly of lesser value.
Now, do you think that ties into the atheism aspect? Because then it's like, well, if God exists, that means that man himself is inferior. That's where I can definitely see the anti-Christian aspect
not so much. I more along the lines of, flipping it. When Darwin first proposed his idea that man was an evolved creature, and he wasn't denying the existence of God, at least not at first. But what he was saying was that man came from animals. Those around him immediately knew what that meant was that man was no longer a special creature. Man was suddenly just an animal. Yeah, I'll bet an animal that's more advanced, that's got thought and reason, but suddenly loses his place in the universe. And it's because it has become its own belief system. It is the only explanation for the origin of man and life that does not rely upon a deity. And so those who are against deities, this is the only belief system they can have. And so for them, it has become a religion. Oh yeah, no, the apes have a creator. They have holy scriptures. They have in their universe they are the highest being, and they were given life by a deity.
But I think the apes kind of have multiple different ideas. I mean, like in that one scene, when Taylor goes into that service, or like they seem to be having like some sort of like a ceremony of some kind, or a memorial service. They seem to acknowledge heaven.
Oh yeah,
there seems to be
the apes have a creator. They have holy scriptures. They have in their universe. They are the highest being, and they were given life by a deity.
Yeah. So, and that kind of comes down to these different kind of, different factions of different beliefs that they seem to maintain. So, and then I think when you have like the Cornelius character, he's kind of the character that kind of science versus, he kind of starts out as science versus belief or theory, the Roddy McDowall character. But then he kind of becomes the science versus science and fact mentality. He doesn't, he seems to have these ideas that that apes came from man, but then he kind of takes this journey with Heston, and then he finds out, no, I don't think his belief is proven incorrectly, but then it's not proven fact, but it's proven to where, man did have a stake in this world before you did. Something else happened. So there's you remember like the whole missing link debate that he was having, and then Heston was like, no, I'm not a missing link at all. So that's the weird thing about this movie. It seems to be a collision of different ideas ideologies that may ultimately come down to, there is no deity, we're left to our own machines, or that evil is pretty much absolute. Like, is that like the ending message that you get from this movie, or do you feel like there's too many different ideas in here that narrow it down to a?
No, I don't think so. I think what it's trying to do is far simpler. I think what it's doing is intentionally flipping the idea of Darwinism and putting it in a different light, so that we see the absurdity of contradicting. It's taking an established thing that we know to be true, and that is that humans exist on Earth. And it's basically, if evolution is true, it's putting us in the position of apes seeing humans debate about whether or not they came from apes. And so it is intentionally endorsing the idea of evolution, and painting the opposition as clowns, basically. As clowns who do indeed know the truth, but willfully ignore it.
I need to really rewatch the film to really catch up on those, to really catch those aspects. Because it seemed like very different ideologies colliding with each other, but then it ultimately ends with, like, it seems to be more about the nature of man. That's what I kind of took away from it, was the nature of man, which the other movies have kind of explored that, at least like the two, the Rise and Dawn, or more so Dawn.
Well, yeah, no, what was intriguing about both of those, especially Dawn, is the fact they are linking evil with intelligence. You cannot be willfully evil unless you have the intelligence to do so. It's a fascinating concept to explore, that I wholeheartedly reject. I think man is basically evil, and that's the end of the story. But they play with it a little in a different light. Versus here in this Planet of the Apes, they seem to come to the conclusion that man alone is evil, and other creatures are not.
You know what? This is why I'm kind of looking forward to War of the Apes, because I am kind of looking, because I think, if nothing more, I think the filmmakers are kind of exploring these ideas a lot more in depth than I think this film ever did. I think it poses the questions, but I think
certainly.
I think I have to give a huge compliment to Matt Reeves, because I think he's kind of been delving more of it in the second, and more likely in the third film, because I think it's going to really bring those questions. I think he's going to hopefully answer those questions. I think this movie presented. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, because I think honestly, like, once I see that film, it's going to really connect, not just, continuity, what we know about this film, but I think it's going to present us the definitive, well, more likely, maybe not the definitive, but it's going to present us with here is an answer to the why to all of this. Who is superior, who is inferior. Anyway, Ben, what are your final thoughts on War of the Planet? Sorry, what are your final thoughts on Planet of the Apes, and do you recommend it?
I think it is an incredibly fascinating film. On the whole, story-wise, it's incredibly simple. It's a 2-hour film just because of the pacing. If it was to pace at today's level, the film would probably only be about a half hour long. I think if you are a science fiction lover, this is one to see because of its iconic use of music and imagery. And I think it's also a fascinating case study for evolution and those who support that idea. It gives you an insight into how they view those who are against evolution. So, yeah, as a discerning viewer, I think it's a good film to watch.
Do I give it a recommend? It's very straightforward in terms of its story. I mean, it's what you get. I mean, people go to this world that you find out is our world, the Earth, and then you find out the apes are pretty much inhabiting it. It's a very dialogue-heavy driven film. I thought it was going to be a much more action-oriented film, but it's not really. I mean, you just have that one scene when Taylor and the rest of his crew when they're captured, and then you have the ending, the little shootout at the end, but that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot of action in this movie when I first, as much as I thought there was going to be. Another big compliment, actually a flaw that I do have with this movie is the makeup, the ape makeup. It's kind of a hoot to watch at times because at times, whenever they speak,
you can. It's definitely the ADR and the voiceover is very clear, very evident.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I would love to see footage, like just the unedited footage. With the un-ADR'd, just footage of them on set and hearing the dialogue. I'm sure they're going to be like...
yeah, very mumbly, I'm sure.
And I'm sure Heston was probably like, what did you say, Roddy? What did you say, Kim? I did not hear what you guys said. But it's, people really give this movie huge props for the makeup. I will say this, though. The makeup, when they're trying to express... their looks or like emotions, I think those work. But when it comes to moving the mouth and trying to talk, that's where it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, the mouth was an issue. Other than that, the makeup I think was really well. You really do see, if you're just watching, you see an ape there. You don't, an evolved ape, but you don't see a man in a creature suit. You actually see what they're trying to portray there.
Yeah, I was just looking it up. Yeah, the film was nominated for Best Costume Design. It was nominated for Musical Score, Jerry Goldsmith. There's the Star Trek connection right there. Jerry Goldsmith, there you go.
Yeah.
And yes, it did win the makeup achievement, John Chambers, actually. Okay, I thought I knew it won for the makeup were right there, but anyway, yeah. Do I recommend Planet of the Apes? I think I do recommend it, but I do have to say, watch it as a philosophical piece. Not don't go into this expecting a huge action movie. Don't really expect that. It's kind of like in the vein of, you know what? I kind of think of this like as 2001: A Space Odyssey in some ways. Like it's very philosophically driven. And very talkative, but it's not, but it's not as like, it's not trying to be pretty. Like you look at 2001, that movie is so ambitious with its, with its visuals and with its ideas. But, but this one, I recommend it. It's a very interesting look at the, early sci-fi, very different from it's kind of like Mad Max at times. Like it's a kind of the dystopian future of the world that we know, and then things just go completely horribly wrong with it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And speaking of apes, we are 2 weeks away from the new one.
Yes.
I'm so excited for that.
Shut up! It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
Anyway, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Ben, where can people find more of your work?
Nothing at the moment. I guess you can just search Benjamin Curley on Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, that's about it for now.
Audiences, please check us out on iTunes and Facebook and Twitter. Please leave us comments and follow us up on those links as well. Also, please send us an email at s2spodcast@gmail.com, and please it's the number 2, not TO. It's S2, the number 2, spodcast@gmail.com. So just a reminder right there. I'm sure many of you have sent me emails, but it's been like the 2, T-O. No. It's number 2. Anyway, folks, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye, and we'll be back soon with... Actually, this month is looking pretty good. I mean, we've got Spider-Man Homecoming, which is coming out next week. Again, War of the Planet of the Apes, and Dunkirk. I'm not going to lie, Dunkirk seems to be kind of at a disadvantage because there doesn't seem to be much marketing for that film as, like, Spider-Man and War of the Planet of the Apes. It doesn't seem to be getting that kind of attention. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, no, which is a shame, because the first trailers I saw for it made it look really, really good. I think it's just coming out in the wrong season. I think there's just too much competition.
Could we expect the first big Nolan flop? We will have to wait and see. Anyway, folks, we're going to go ahead and close it out for tonight. We'll see you very soon. Have a good night. Cheers.
Bye.
Take your stinking paws off me, you dirty ape!